What if the reason so many people feel unfulfilled isn't because they're doing too little, but because they're living a life they never consciously chose? In this conversation, I sit down with John Salzwedel, author of Stop Leaving Life on the Table, to talk about purpose, fulfillment, social media, work life balance, and why so many people feel like they're just going through the motions. Welcome to How to Be a Person, a podcast about life, with me, your host, Giuliano. John, thanks so much for joining me today. How's it going?
Going good, Giuliano. Thanks a lot for inviting me in. Been looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you on the show. So can you tell me a little bit about yourself and we'll go from there?
Sure. I was born in a little tiny farming community in Wisconsin and lived there for the first few years of my life and also at another point later in my life for a little while. But I've lived most of my life in West Michigan and love it here. Right now, this is the time of year we look outside and say, now this is what we went through January and February so we could get to these days. I'm married, 2 kids, 2 dogs, bunch of kids by the process of life, and a bunch of grandkids by the process of life, and a couple of grandkids by blood. And after 30 years, almost 30 years in as a CEO and different other positions within the corporate community, I went out on my own to write and to work with people one-on-one and just helping to see life as it could be instead of as it is, I guess is a good way to put that.
Interesting. So you said you were a CEO for 30 years?
I was a CEO for about 10 years, but I was at the same organization for almost 30 years.
Wow. That's actually that's a long time to be at one place.
Yeah, it was. It was a great place. The company was great. The people I worked with were phenomenal, and the industry. It's a good. People always make a lot of fun of the insurance industry, but it is very, very necessary. It helps a lot of people. Nobody likes insurance until they need it, so I got no qualms about the industry itself. It just stopped being what I was doing there. Stopped being in alignment with who I had become.
Interesting. Do you care to elaborate on that?
It's a lot of what is in my book, but basically, I got to work in and develop all of my skills in leadership, which I use a lot currently in my church and in other activities that I do. But I was feeling more and more pulled to be talking to people about topics of just living life and working with people about those topics. I was seeing people just depressed, sad, suicides on the rise, and there's no reason for it other than there's just so much going on and people are confused about what's happening. And I felt pulled to reach out and start talking to people to basically to give hope, to help them find a way to not get bogged down by this stuff that bogs everybody down and not get sucked into the whole plan of hating everybody that disagrees with you and thinking that they hate you if you disagree with them and just to live the life that you're supposed to be living and how to find that.
Yeah, I feel like it's really easy to get caught up in everything that's going on in the world. And I've talked to, a lot of people about this, and especially here on the show. Like, we weren't meant to carry the weight of the world, like that's just not how we're designed. And while you don't want to be someone who's just oblivious, right? Well, maybe you do. I don't know, right? But while most people agree you don't want to be someone who's completely oblivious to what's going on in the world, you do have to kind of ask yourself, like, is this helping me or anyone else? Like me being aware of all of the problems that's going on. And if the answer to both of those questions is no, it's kind of like, well, then what are we doing here?
Yeah. You hear so often about how the world is so much more complicated than it used to be. And in some ways it is. In other ways, it's the same as it used to be. We just know everything there is to know. You go back 50 years ago, the news didn't report on a small village in someplace in Africa that was having a water shortage. It just didn't happen because there was no way to really make it happen. And now we know everything that happens everywhere, and that it's just too much.
Yeah, it gets to a point where you're like, okay, this is like my theory on it is that, you know, if we were designed to live in small groups, or if we evolved to live in small groups, right, whatever people believe, you know, you're really only aware of what's going on like within your eyesight, basically, right? As far as you can see, like that's basically all you really know about. And if something was going on within your vicinity that you could be aware of, like it makes sense to be stressed about it, right? Because
Yeah.
you're like, hey, this is happening in my immediate vicinity. And what's interesting is that, you know, first of all, I'm a huge fan of the internet. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of a lot of the technological advances. But when you think about it, essentially what we've done is take our awareness and extend it out from where normally it's like, oh, just basically what we can see, like as far as we can see. And now we have this awareness of what's happening around the entire world.
Yeah.
And I think our bodies and our, you know, our brains are just reacting the way that they're supposed to react, right? Normally what you can see is an immediate threat, right? If there's something going on, like you should be stressed about it, but we're aware of things that technically we can see, right? Like visually we can see, but it's not happening in our immediate vicinity, and therefore getting stressed about it, being worried about it. Not that it's not helpful, or that it can't have its advantages, but for the most part, for the average person, is like, this is not actually benefiting you, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and the along that same line, the things that we're finding out about, they are important, but are they important to our everyday life and the things that we're doing every day and how we're stressing about it? I can help build a water well over in Africa somewhere, um, by writing a check for it because it is important to do that
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff. But I shouldn't be losing sleep at night because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I can't write that check, I shouldn't be losing sleep over that because we have responsibilities here that truly are important to our immediate neighborhood. And that's where you got to start. You start in your neighborhood. Don't ignore the rest of the world, but you can't put every ounce of energy into everywhere else.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And um, I think, well, there's a couple things about what you said. First of all, if everyone focused on their immediate vicinity, maybe not even everyone, right? Let's just say 25% of all people were like, I'm going to do everything in my power to make everything around me as best as it can be, right? Meaning, like, I'm going to do a great job. I'm going to bring happiness to people. I'm going to show kindness. I'm going to be generous. And like I said, even if maybe 25% of all people were like, I'm going to do that in my immediate vicinity, I feel like the world would be a paradise, basically.
Oh, yeah, there would be so much good happening that way. And that what we have to do, we have limited brain power, limited capacity to handle things. We have to figure out those things which are most important to us and focus
Mm,
on those and
yeah.
do our best with those.
Well, it's like you said, like, it's not that the things that are going on in the world are not important, or even, like, let's say terrible things that are happening. It's not like you just don't feel bad for whoever is going through those things. But like at a certain point, you have to recognize that you only have so much capacity. Like you said, like
Yep.
every human being only has so much capacity. And even if you could, like, someone could be like, hey, I'm thinking about this, there's this thing going, there's this thing going on, is like, I guarantee you I could triple your list instantly, right? I could just go online and find a million more things for you to care about. But what are you going
Yep.
to do? Right? Like, you're clearly not going to add all those things to your list, right? Ultimately, it's like, everyone has to focus on what's important to them. And but this is the thing. This is what I'm saying, right? Like, if someone is focused on their immediate vicinity, and maybe, let's say, one or two big issues outside of their immediate vicinity that they really care about, that kind of fixes everything, right? Instead of expecting everyone to always be concerned with everything that's going on. I think one of the things you were saying before about, if you, like, you don't want to buy into this idea that, like, well, people who don't agree with me are evil, or if someone disagrees with me, that means they hate me. And ultimately, I think any reasonable person can look and be like, yeah, I really only have so much capacity. If I focus on my immediate vicinity and maybe one or two big causes that I care about, and everyone did that, we could have a positive impact on the planet. And therefore, I don't need everyone else to care about the same thing that I care about. I don't need everyone else to donate to or post about or, participate in activism for this specific thing that I care about because I'm doing it. And then there's enough other people that care about this issue as well that they're going to do something about it too. And I don't need to make someone good or bad based on whether or not they're participating in that specific issue.
Yeah, yeah, we're all different. Different things matter to us, and we are limited. So, yeah, I think you said it very very well.
Well, I think also how this kind of ties in with one of the things you were saying before. Well, part of why I was excited to have you on the show was your book, which is titled. Wait, tell me
Stop
what it's titled.
stop leaving life on the table.
Stop leaving life on the table. I really like that title. And I'm assuming I'm kind of just assuming what the book is about from the title. But part of the reason why I was drawn to that title is because I've been saying for years that like it's important to me to like squeeze everything out of life as I possibly can. Right. I think so many of us, myself included in the past, just kind of go through life doing what is expected of us and what the people around us, influence us to do or not do,
Yeah,
right? All of those things. And because of that, you end up kind of just doing what you're supposed to do instead of doing what like really makes you come alive, and like really what lights a fire in you and what some might view as like their purpose on earth. And the point is just that like, yeah, I agree with like I like that concept. Can you tell me a little bit more about it?
sure, sure. I got the title from a business concept, and you probably are aware of it. The whole phrase "we left money on the table,"
Yep.
and the example I use all the time to explain it. So, if I sell you a bike for $100, and we both agree you pay the $100, I'm walking away, and I hear you say, "Boy, I'd have paid $150 for this bike." Well, I left $50 on the table.
Yeah.
That's the business concept behind it. And I got thinking, how often do we do that with the time we have, with the life that we have? And time is our
Mm,
most valuable commodity. And how often are we just accepting what shows up, using our time in the easiest way possible, even if it doesn't do anything for us, or for anybody else for that matter. There's nothing wrong with goofing off if you're goofing off intentionally. But to be
mm,
goofing off just because you never thought of doing anything else, well, that's a shame. And you're leaving your skills, you're leaving the amazing experiences you can have in your life. You're just leaving them out there and not taking them. And we're not meant to do that. We're not meant to sit around. We weren't built to sit around and do nothing. We weren't built to just be automatons. We have
mm,
brains, we have bodies meant to think, to do, to feel, and we need to figure that stuff out and how we're going to do that.
mm. Yeah, I think I would change my bio on my social medias pretty often. And for a long time, I had on there that life is meant to be lived. And for me, like the way that I was raised in a very like religious environment, but it was kind of I'm trying to think of what's the word to describe it. I think they call it like high demand, where it's just there's a lot that's expected of you and there's a lot of rules and structure and like this is what you're supposed to do with your life. And I think it's because of that I like feel so strongly about it. The fact that like life is meant to be lived because for so long it's like I was living my life according to what I was told I was like my life was supposed to look like. And once I was like, wait a second. I don't even want to do this. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
this is what I really want to do, or I want to explore and figure out what I want to do. And when I started doing that, like it's kind of what I was saying before about squeezing everything out of life. Like when you say that, you think of like fruit, like squeeze all the juice. And it's
Yep.
like that really life is really like that. Like when you go and you have experiences and you do things and you get out of like this, living in like the box that's your house and staring at the box that's your phone and you know what I mean? Like all of those things, like you go and you actually live your life and you do things that are exciting to you and you follow, what you're passionate about and do those things. Like it really feels like you're taking like a bite out of this like delicious, juicy fruit.
Yeah.
And if anybody's like, whenever you eat a piece of fruit, no one's gonna like, oh, I'm gonna take a bite of this apple and just chuck the rest. Like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, you eat as much of it as you possibly can, you know? And that's, I feel like, how life is supposed to be. It's like you're not supposed to just do what you're supposed to do. And I think a lot of us are wrapped up in that process of like just going to work, watching Netflix, you know, ordering Uber Eats or something like that. You know what I mean? Ordering Instacart. You know what I'm saying? Like you're just kind of like going through the motions of life. And it doesn't surprise me then when I see people say things online like, I hate it here. And, you know, just stuff like that about how much life sucks. And you're like, well, it does if you don't live it.
Yeah.
If you're not, like you said, you're leaving life on the table. Like, how are you about to go and like eventually die, because all of us are going to die eventually. How are
Yep.
you about to eventually die and not have done the things you wanted to do? Like, I can't imagine that. That's why I just go and do whatever the hell I want now, because I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I could die any day. You know what I mean? Like, I could get hit by a car today and be done. And it's like, well, did I do everything I wanted? For the most part, you know. But there's still, of course, every day there's new things that I want to do, and so it's like that's how I live my life now.
Sure. Yeah, and you know the trick behind it, and it's great that you identified the fact that even well-meaning people, when they're telling you what you should be doing, they don't know you, they don't know what drives you on the inside, and they're not trying to make you feel bad or to screw up your life. They're trying to help, but
Yep.
sometimes they just can't. Sometimes it's great advice, sometimes it isn't. But it's up to us to figure out, okay, these are the things I believe. This is what is important to me. And
Mm.
those things that are important to you create those responsibilities. You know, if you're in a time when you're able to just hop on a plane anytime you want and go wherever, cool. If that's what is important to you to learn and have those experiences, which I think is fantastic. But maybe you're in a spot where, okay, the most important person in my life, when it gets to people, the most important person in my life is my wife. And for a while, I was working in jobs I didn't want to have because of her importance to me, and the
Mm.
responsibility that I have based on that level of importance was to make sure she had enough to get by, and actually, in many times, she was taking care of me. So I don't want it to make it sound like I had to be the man and do
Sure.
everything for her. There were times in our lives when she was the primary breadwinner. We're a partnership, but you have all those things you want to do, all the ways you want to use your skills, and you weigh that against those things that are important to you and say, okay, how can I do the most things that are important to me? Use the skills that are best for me and balance that all through. That's why I also say in the book, there's no such thing as work-life balance. It's a myth, doesn't
Mm.
exist. There's just balance, because work is part of life, just like
Mm.
sleeping is part of life, eating is part of life, hanging with your friends is part of life. It's just a balance of that, and it
Mm.
changes. Sometimes your balance is going to be more, you're going to spend more time on work than you are on playing. Sometimes you're going to spend more time playing than on work, and time with your family, whatever that fluctuates as you go through, um, because you're the things that are needed to keep everything flowing as responsible for the things that are important to you. It all fits together, and you got to juggle that and keep that going through. And once you really have a good feel for what those things are that are important to you, it gets a little easier to juggle that.
Mm. Have you heard of the six human needs from Tony Robbins?
I've heard of, yes, I have. Listened to a lot of Tony Robbins,
Yeah.
and Dean Graziosi, and I worked
Yeah.
with their group quite a bit.
Oh, nice.
Um,
Yeah.
it's great stuff. I would love to say they call me when they need advice, but they don't call me when they need advice.
Oh, that's funny. If you're enjoying the show and want to support, go to howtobeaperson.co and click support the show. The more support the show gets, the more episodes can be produced. Yeah, so it's this concept that I learned about from Tony Robbins a while back, the six human needs. It's basically this idea that all human beings have these six needs, and that some of them are like opposing, essentially. So it's certainty and uncertainty, significance and connection. And then the last two are growth and contribution, which aren't really opposing, but those are like the six needs. And I've always found it really interesting that, because when you're talking about balance, like I find it interesting because obviously it's just a concept that I think he came up with it. It's just a concept, right? It's not necessarily like the rule of law, but for me, I found it to be true that like if you see if you learn this framework and then you just watch people do things, you're like, oh, that's interesting. Like that person is really craving certainty. Maybe it's because they have so much uncertainty in this part of their life right now, right?
Yeah.
So they're trying to create certainty in this one, in this part. And same thing with all of the rest of them. But it was interesting when you said about like balance, because that was like the first thing that popped in my head, because I think as much as I actually don't like I normally don't like the term balance because um, well, I think it's because in my experience, a lot of people told me that I needed to be balanced, and that was just like a way to get me to tone down like being who I was, if that makes sense.
Sure. Sure.
Like, you got to be balanced, and I was just like, no, I want to do this. Um, but I agree with you. I do think that like when it comes to life, I've said, it's funny, I've said the same thing about work life balance. I'm like, I think that's just um, I don't know. It's kind of like this weird thing that came up like into the ether that everyone says, and you're just like,
Yeah.
what? That doesn't make any sense. Like, you're not balancing your work and your life, just like you're not, like you were saying, it's like you don't balance like life and sleep or
Right.
life and eating. It's just all part of your life. And I think, to me, what's interesting about that is by like perpetuating the idea of like work life balance, that you do separate it from your life, as if your work doesn't matter, right? That it's kind of like, hey, I'm doing what I need to do for a paycheck, or like, hey, I'm just doing this because like this is what I'm supposed to do. Of course, I need a roof over my head, and it kind of doesn't matter if it's fulfilling me or if I'm enjoying it or if it's, overly challenging or the right amount of challenging or fulfilling or not, right? Like, so many of us like just set that aside completely. Like, it's just like, oh no, I'm just doing that for money. Like, it just doesn't matter. Like, of course you have this work life balance, your life here and your work over here. And I don't believe that it should be like that. Like, granted, like you said, sometimes there's times where you're like, hey, you just gotta do what you gotta do because you gotta pay the bills. But as a whole in your life, right? It's like it should not be that like your entire life is separated into like, oh, this is the part where I live and this is the part where I work.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other side of what you're saying also becomes a risk is that it becomes too important because you have
Mm,
work is one chunk and then everything else is another chunk.
mm,
That makes work more important than every other individual side of it,
mm.
and some people
Interesting.
live that life, and for some, in a certain season of their life, maybe it is right. Somebody that's starting a brand new business, they're gonna spend a whole lot more time on work than someone who is doing an hourly rate in a company where they're there at 8, they go home at 5, and they forget about their work after 5,
Yeah.
so they have that segment of time that's set aside, and that's where they're spending their work. But someone starting a business, yeah, they're gonna put in a whole bunch more. And you have to work with all of the different, areas of responsibility you have, and you work that balance. Hey, family, I'm starting a new business. I'm going to be home a little bit less than I had been previously. And it's not going to be forever, but for right now, I'm getting this business going, and so that will be part of that. I'm going to trim down in other areas too, and you know, as you identify and get a better handle on who and what are the important things in your life, you have those communications with them, and you work through all that stuff.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to circle back to was when we were talking about um like just being aware of everything going on in the world, and now because we're talking about work life balance and the way that we spend our time and all those things. I think it's really easy to get caught up in like what's going on in the world and being upset about injustices. And I do feel like it is like important to care about people, right? Like,
Mhm.
I do care
Yep.
about people, and I don't want
Yeah.
anyone to have to go. I don't want anyone to go through anything like some of this here stuff we hear about. Like, genuinely, I don't want it. But also at the same time, I've been talking to my wife about this. How you could literally like someone could be born and for their entire life just have continuous like problems, right? They could be born with health issues and their family is poor and they're abused and someone attacks them. And right, I'm just listing as many terrible
Yeah.
things as I could think of. Their entire life could be littered with those things. They die. And if you were to look at that person's life, you'd be like, that was hell. Like that was straight up hell. And like that person, there was nothing good, right? Like, of course, there were
Yep.
some things good, but my point is like overall, like that was a terrible life. And that person would look and be like, life sucks, life is awful, life is terrible, right? You could have another person where the exact opposite happens. They're born completely healthy into a loving family, they have a good life, the people around them love them, they love the people around them, they do work that's fulfilling, and eventually they pass away in their sleep during old age, right? For that person, life is amazing and Earth is a beautiful place. And it's
Yep.
like just like the other person's version of Earth was hell, this person's version of Earth was heaven. And my point of in saying all this is that while of course we care about what's going on in other people's lives and we don't want other people to suffer, what you have to understand is like your life is your life. Like you are going to die eventually. Right?
Hmm.
Every person is going to die eventually. And ultimately, whether or not your life is good or bad is dependent upon your experience from the time that you're born till the time that you die. And not only are you having that experience, so is every other person on the planet. Even the people like that you care about their suffering, they're having that same exact experience. And this is not like meant to be callous, but like they're not thinking about your life, right? They're not like thinking about you and like worried about what's going on in your life. Or maybe you can't, let's say you're behind on a bill or something. Like they're not concerned that like someone in the US is behind on a bill. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're not thinking
Yeah.
about that, even though for you that might be super stressful, right? It might be like one of the most stressful things you've been through. Um, so I guess like just kind of, I'm saying all this to say that like, while we care about other people, I think we also have to care about our own story, right? Like there was someone who, like last year said this to me and it like stuck with me because I watch a lot of TV and they were saying like, are you more concerned about the story of the characters on TV or your own story? And I think that's kind of what's happening here too, is that like, yes, there are real people, right? The difference is that like when you hear about something in the news, like it's a real person that's having that experience. But at the same time, it's like they're living their own life. They have their own story and you have yours as well. And like, while of course you should care and potentially even do something to alleviate the suffering of other people, um, to allow it to like consume all of your thoughts and to be worried about it and have anxiety about what direction the world is going in and all these things feels like kind of like overkill and almost like a taking for granted of your own story.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I'm gonna put another twist in there though.
Sure.
You had mentioned a person that went through all of this stuff that we would say is terrible, and they had a
Sure.
terrible life, and all the person that went through everything was great, and they had a wonderful life. There are an awful lot of people who have everything going for them, every possible thing, and they have a terrible life. And there's an awful lot of people, and we see them on TV. They go interview someone that they have nothing, absolutely nothing, and they're smiling and singing and saying, "Hey, it's a great day. The sun's out, and I got water and food. I'm having a wonderful time." We can't change the things that happen to us. We can't adjust all of those. We can't adjust how people treat us. What we can control is how we're going to react to that. And you can have a sunny day and be thankful, hey, beautiful sun is out, or complaining because it's so hot today. Which one are you going to do? And it is absolutely our responsibility. Nobody's going to do that for you. Nobody's going to take care of every little part of it so it's exactly the way you want, because you know as well as I do, if you're going to be complaining about every little thing, if somebody fixes it, it ain't going to be good enough, and you're going to complain about whatever that is too. So figure out what good is, and when the bad things happen, find the good in it. There always is something. Sometimes
Yeah.
really hard to find, though. That's
Yeah.
it's such an old cliche, find the silver lining, but it's true. It's just true.
Well, and it's funny. I feel like what you just said proves the point even more. Is that like it's almost none of our business what other people are going through. You know, like I'm thinking about some of the experiences I've had in my life that other people would look at and label as like, "Wow, that's a terrible experience."
Hmm.
And if someone had the power, right, if you gave someone powers to be able to not have me go through that experience, they'd be like, yeah, absolutely. I'll spare you of that experience. Whereas for me, I'm like, look, I was not enjoying it in that moment. That's for sure. But everything I have in my life right now is a result of everything that's happened in my life up until now. And I love my life. So like I technically like I don't think I would want to not have gone through that. Right. Like in the moment I was like I said, I wasn't enjoying it. But now I'm like, no, that's part of my story. I have a good story. I have a really good story because of the things that I've experienced. And I feel like it's given me perspective and it's helped me to connect with more people. And you understand what I'm saying? So like
Yeah.
when you said that, that was the first thing that popped in my head because I'm thinking, oh yeah, also it's not objective, right? Life is not objective. It's not something where you go, oh yeah, you had a terrible life. I bet that sucked for you, huh? Were you just unhappy the whole time? And the person's like, actually, you know what? It kind of wasn't that bad, right? Or the other way around. Like you said, someone has everything going for them and they're depressed and they think it's awful and whatever. Like it's almost as if it's like what I was saying before, like everyone is living their own story. They're living their own life. And it's kind of like not your business what other people are experiencing. And I'm trying to find like again, with this word balance, I'm trying to find a
Yeah.
balance here because I don't want to be callous, right? I'm not saying that like I don't care at all about other people's suffering. But when I look at my own suffering, I think, yeah, I didn't like it, but I'm glad now that I went through it. And so, like, is it really anyone else's business to be like, oh, well, let me step in and stop this suffering for you? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Particularly in the when a lot of it is a mental kind of thing, and you kind of alluded to it when you said maybe step in and help out, because there's nothing wrong with doing that, and that's, you find it in your own digging into you. um and I'm going to use this example again. It's not something that's huge on my list, so I'm not sure why it popped into my head. Maybe it's a huge on your list, but if one of your top priorities is fresh water for everybody, what are you doing about it? Are you sitting around just complaining to everybody about how they don't have fresh water in Africa, or are you hopping on a plane
Mm,
and going and building a well? You know, Helping other people, there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. If that's where your passion is, that's what your heart is, that's what you want to be doing, great. Go and do that, and get rid of some of these problems that exist that you can fix. But what you can't do, even in that very same village, if you go there to put in a well, you can't make the people there appreciate it.
mm,
Most will, but there's going to be some that complain about whatever it was. They're going to find something in there, and you can't
mm.
change that.
Interesting. Yeah, that's super interesting because I mean, you could play it out further, right? Like, there's people who don't appreciate it. There'd be people who take advantage of it. There'd be people who vandalize it. There'd be people who poison the water, right? There's all these things that could happen, and it's like I think it's kind of a good reminder of what I was just saying, that like not that we shouldn't help. I do think that like when it's within our power and we feel compelled to, I think that we should. But also, it's kind of like I think it's a good reminder that like again, like what I said, everyone's living their own thing. Like things are good. Like it's almost as if like we feel like when we help or like we want to intervene that like we're somehow in control, right? And like we're affecting the outcome, when in reality like everyone affects the outcome, right? Like there's so many like random factors and all these things that contribute to the way things that work out, that it's almost as if like, yeah, I guess my point is just that like I I think taking responsibility for our own lives and our own story is probably like one of the most important things we can do, because ultimately one day we're gonna, you know, leave this earth in one way, shape, or form. And if we are aware of it in that moment, like before it happens, it's like how are you going to feel? Like you're going to feel like you lived the life that you were meant to live, or lived a life that you felt obligated to live, you know? And I
Yeah.
think that there's a huge difference between the two.
Sure. Yeah, there's so much need out there. You can't solve all of it. If you have a certain need that you're drawn to, that you're working towards, and the skills and talents to address that, then you are going to feel it, that you need to be a part of
Mm,
that solution, um, that specific one. But we don't have the skills to address all of that stuff. So it's all part of finding out who you are and where your skills are, and then putting them in the right place in your responsibility list, and in your priorities of what's first. Um, the story of the large rocks. You've heard that, Stephen Covey's story on that.
mm,
If you're when you're putting your life together and you're scheduling your life, you got a jar, you put the big rocks in, and the big rocks are those things that are most important to you,
mm,
and you put those in to make sure there's room for them. And then there's the small rocks, which are kind of important but not as important. And then there's sand, which is stuff that it's still stuff that needs to be done, but it's not overly important. And then there's water, and water's just the other stuff. So if you put the big rocks in, you can put some of the small rocks in, and you can then put some of the sand in, and then you can put some of the water in. If you do it the other way around and you put the meaningless stuff in first and fill the jar up with water, you're done. You can't do any of your important stuff.
mm.
So you start with the most important things. You figure out what you can do, where your skills are, what it is that you need to be addressing and spending your time on, and you go from there and build up and do what you can with that. And don't
Yeah,
neglect goofing off, because goofing off is important as long as you're doing it honestly.
yeah. Where do you think it comes from? Like, so I spend probably more time than I should scrolling through comment sections and just seeing what people have to say. And I feel like it really surprises me how many people just like hate life. Like they just talk about how
Yeah.
terrible everything is. I'm trying to, I don't know. I guess I'm curious, like where you think that not just that perspective comes from, but also like not doing what you're talking about, right? Where the title of your book is like you just leaving life on the table. Why do you feel like people do leave life on the table?
Well, I think we have a big disadvantage in the power of the algorithms. When you go on Facebook or any other social media place, they're going to show you all the clips that match up with all the things that you've commented on, but they're not going to show you the opposite. So you're going to look at it, and I hate talking politics. I try to stay out of it.
Okay.
Um, but I'm going to pull up a name here, and I'm not going to tell you where I am. So if you hate Donald Trump and you like to type about how much you hate Donald Trump, everything you see on Facebook is going to be coming from everybody else that hates Donald Trump. You will
Mm,
never see anything good that he does.
mm,
If you think Donald Trump is perfect and he's absolutely flawless in everything that he's doing, and you type stuff up like that, the algorithm's going to keep coming back from more people that see the same thing as you. He's not perfect, eh, but you're never going to see that. It blocks all of that. So what we
mm,
are left with is a big pile of things that agree and expand on what we want and make it even more, and then we get buried under that. And when you get buried
mm.
under that negativity, um, it's it's so hard to get out.
Yeah.
It's so
Doesn't
hard
it
to
kind
get
of
out.
feel like like what we were saying before of like almost just like focusing on what's going on literally within your actual physical vicinity? Because that's it's like you said. So I've had that same experience, and I think I was telling my wife about this because I have different accounts for different purposes, and some that are like they don't have my name and face associated with it, and and also the things that I post about on those accounts are very different than each other.
Okay.
And the feeds within those accounts, like when I go and scroll, are so different. That's what's kind of nuts about it is you realize, oh yeah, like it's literally like everyone is getting their own feed and they think that they're getting an accurate depiction of reality when in reality, they're just being served up the things that the platform believes is going to hold their attention and keep them on the platform longer, because that's their incentive, right? The more people they have on the
Yep.
platform, the more advertisers can show ads and the more money they make for, per user or whatever. And so like people are on these platforms, myself included, and if you're on there for a long time, it's like you just keep getting fed this same stuff that like pushes you. It's just like you start tipping in one direction and they're just like, go, right? They just like shove you in that direction, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely, that is. And when it's that way, then it looks like things are far worse than they are.
Mm,
And that's where the division comes from. Everybody in the world believes this. I can tell because everything I read says the exact same thing. How
mm,
can you be so foolish as to not believe this? Well, that's not reality. Just like you said, that's the stuff they're sending you your way, um,
mm,
and it's disappointing. It's disappointing. I heard some great advice one time. Is if you're a person that likes to read the newspaper or read the news, however, whatever form you get it, read a liberal one, read a conservative one, and read a centrist one. If they all
mm,
three agree, then you probably got a good story. If they don't agree, it's probably somewhere in the middle.
mm.
Just find any of the facts that are similar, and the reality of it is probably it's whatever you can find in agreement within them. Otherwise, it's probably sensationalized.
Yeah. If you're enjoying the show, I think you'll love my book by the same name, How to Be a Person, 100 Gems on Living a Good Life, available now on Amazon. Yeah, I think even just like the news in general, I find it, yeah, you almost can't escape stuff now, right? Like even for me, I don't like I haven't like watched the news in like years, but when you're on social media, you get the news that like there's no escaping the news. You know what I mean? Like you're going
Yeah.
to hear about the news. But actually, one thing I found is, like I said, when I'm disconnected, if I'm not on social media all day, if I'm not, I don't look at the news, but if I wasn't, looking at the news and checking stuff, it's like, oh, actually, everything seems fine. Right? Because, like I said, you're just witnessing what's happening in your immediate vicinity. You're like, oh, everything's pretty good, actually. Um, and I think, one thing that I think is important to realize is that, and part of the reason why I shared before about like, what your experience is, like if someone had like, oh, this person had a terrible life versus this person had a great life, is that ultimately none of us are guaranteed how long we're going to be here. You also don't know how long it's going to be. Like, and you're also guaranteed to leave, right? You're here and you know that it's going to end at some point. Then the priority should be to enjoy the experience while you're here, and not to get so caught up in like worry and what's going on and all these things. And I think that it takes me back to that idea of just focusing on what's going on around you. And really, I think, in certain circles, it's just about being present, right? Being present here in this moment. I think when we do that, we realize like there really actually isn't anything wrong. And what I mean by that is that in my experience,
Hmm.
right? And that's for each person, right? In your experience, in each moment, there really is nothing wrong, right? Like in the times that there are things wrong is because we're upset about something that happened in the past, or we're worried about something that's going to happen in the future. But in this and I'm not saying like, oh, 10 years in the future or even a day in the future. I mean, sometimes we're thinking about 10 seconds from now, right? And we go, oh no, but see, because, I feel like this or this thing's going on. You're like, that's still outside of this moment, right? In this exact moment, which is gone already, right? And now it's this moment, now it's this moment. But in these exact moments, it's like, there really isn't anything you need. There really isn't anything wrong. And you can choose to just be here in this present moment as often as you want. You can make that choice. And when you realize that there really is nothing wrong and you don't need anything, and that life is just a series of those moments, and you can choose to be in that moment whenever you want, then it's like life's pretty good. And to be honest, when my life is over, I want to be able to look back on it and be like, and maybe I won't have that opportunity. I don't know how it works. um, but if I do have the opportunity to look back, I want to be able to say like, yeah, you know what? This place was awesome. And I was able to enjoy what I had while I had it.
Yeah, yeah. I think you make a good point that what we have is what we have. The reality that you live in at any given moment is the one that you have, and how you're going to react to it is entirely up to you. You can choose to give up, you can choose to move forward. And sometimes you need help on that, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. We don't have to be the Mr. Tough guy and I can get through it all on my own. We can't. You know, life is, there's so much going on, and getting through it alone is just doesn't make a lot of sense when you don't have to. But it is our call to find that. And like
Mm.
you said, you want to be at the end and say, I enjoyed it. And you enjoy the fun things, you enjoy the work.
Mm.
I love what I'm doing, working. I'm writing. I love writing books. I love doing meeting with people one on one and talking them through stuff. Is it hard work?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, but I'm enjoying it, and it's a gift that I have, and I'm using that gift. And when
Mm.
we use our gifts to do things that are important to us, I mean, you can't beat that internal feeling. That's just awesome.
Yeah. It makes me wonder if for some people, again, my past self included, that maybe they're just not aware that it's an option, you know? Like I was thinking how if you live your life like you're born and you're raised to just believe that this is like what you're supposed to do. You just got to get a job. Like you said, separate your work from your life, just do what you need to do to pay the bills. And you're kind of just operating and just getting by. And like, maybe there's just like a lack of awareness that it's possible to like just do what you want to do and, and to like be fulfilled. And, like I think sometimes you have you have to have the experience in order to like realize that experience is possible. And, yeah, I think that's one of the things I like to share as well is just that because I know sometimes when I talk about this stuff, I think people are like, "Whoa, you have this privilege or this, and you're a white man or you're this or that," and I'm like, okay, I mean, you're not wrong, right? Like, sure, I have certain cards that are good in my hand, but I have
Yeah.
other cards that are kind of bad. Right? You know what I mean? Like no
Oh
one's
yeah, I
dealt
do.
a perfect hand. Well, I mean, maybe some people are, right? Like, I actually really like the concept of like poker as a comparison to life because it really is like that. It's like you're dealt a hand, and to be honest, it kind of doesn't matter what hand you're dealt. Anybody who plays poker for enough time realizes, oh, wait a second. It's not about the hand that I'm dealt. Like you can win with literally any hand you can win with.
Yeah.
And of course, in poker, that's where the concept or the analogy falls through is that like one person wins, right? It's not like that. Um, in life, everybody can win, but the point is that you can win with any hand you're dealt. There are hands that are great, but there's some people who don't know how to play them, right? And they end up losing anyway. It doesn't matter if you have a great hand. So, and sometimes you leave money on the table.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though you're given a really good hand, right? You get an amazing hand and you leave money on the table because you don't know how to play it. Um,
Yeah.
I forgot where I was going with this.
Well, you're right on the whole skills and the awareness that some people just don't have it. Nobody ever showed it to them. Nobody ever
Mm,
taught them that.
yeah.
Um, there's also within that, there's a fear. I have
Mm,
I do have my job that pays all my bills and takes care of everything, and I don't want to lose that. And
yep.
no one has ever shown them that you don't have to. You can still go after those things which are important to you. You don't even have to leave the job that you're in.
Hmm.
If you like the job decent enough, it's maybe not perfect, but what your job isn't really all that important to you. They got other things that are more important. Then stay in that job. Do that job. Do your absolute best at that job, and you can use the other time balanced the way we're talking about to
Hmm.
do those other things, take care of those other things that are there. But many people are not taught that you can do that. It's one or the other. You either love your job or you hate your job,
Mm,
and you're either rich or you're poor. And
mm.
there's lots of kinds
Yeah.
of rich, lots of kinds of
Yeah.
poor.
Yeah. And I remembered also where I was going with that was that oh wow, did I lose it again? Well, yeah, because you were talking about like just being oh yeah, that's why I said like sometimes I'll share this stuff. Like I kind of share my perspective and I have it like just it's obvious like I'm just happy, like I'm fulfilled, I have a good life. And I think that sometimes people look and are like, well, yeah, but you have this going for you, and that's fine. But for for me part of the reason why I enjoy sharing myself and sharing my perspective and sharing my positivity and my energy and like talking about how fulfilled I am and all those things is not to brag, but almost just to like show people like, hey, life doesn't have to be this thing that you just get through. Like it could be this thing that you actually get to do, right? For
Yeah.
me, like I wake up and like I'm excited. Like I love being alive. And what's funny is that I sit here and I go like, oh, why do these people think that way? But I also have felt that way in the past. I mean, like
Hmm.
there's like I said, there's parts of my story that I mean, I would venture to say like a really large percentage of the population has never gone through and will never go through and would vote not to go through it if they had the option. Um, and I remember times in my life where I didn't want to be here, you know,
Yeah.
and that's part of the reason why I share, my perspective as well, is because um, I think at the time, especially, I didn't really realize it was an option. I didn't really think that it was like possible to, um, like wake up and just be happy and do the things that fulfill you and feel, not just feel good like temporarily, but that just genuinely like light you up.
Yeah.
And for me, when I wake up in the morning, I'm excited. But I also know that there was a time where that was not the case, right? I would wake up and I would be mad that I was awake. It's like I wish I could sleep longer, and I don't want to go do this thing, and I don't want to deal with this or whatever. Um, but it doesn't have to be that way. And the thing about it is that it also doesn't necessarily, just kind of like what you were saying, it doesn't even necessarily mean that anything in your life actually has to change for that feeling to change. It's just your reaction to it, right? Like
Yeah.
your perspective on it, the way that you view your life can affect the fact whether or not you're getting any fulfillment out of it and whether or not you're enjoying it. And to be honest, when you show up happier, I mean, things tend to change for the better anyway. Um, but yeah.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true. And I went through the same thing when I went from having a C-suite and all that stuff to what I'm doing now. I have no staff now, so now if I want something printed, I got to print it. If I want something folded, I got to fold it. If I want stamps on something, I'm putting stamps on. It's a very different world, but it didn't have to be that. For some people, it's a big change like that. For others, it's just a matter of if I took a if I spent a little time every day just writing notes to people,
Mm,
one person a day to make them feel good, that may be enough of the shift in what you're doing with your day to get everything lined up. You got to figure out where you're missing. Something's missing somewhere. I didn't want to get out of bed either, and I put things off. I would procrastinate on things that would come in because I just
mm,
didn't want to do it anymore. And it's just a matter of figuring out what's not in alignment and fixing
mm,
that. And usually that comes from quiet. Turn off your computer and your phone and
mm,
everything else. And I'm a big fan of just a notepad and a pencil. And I start it with a prayer. Some people won't, but you sit down and you just start writing stuff down. And the things that come out of your head are going to start giving you some clues as to what's not going right.
mm. No, I love that. And um, I think like what you said, to use the word alignment. I've been saying that for a while now too. I think that um, this is part of the conditioning that I think a lot of us go through, right? And in my experience, it was because of the religious setting in which I was raised. But I think we all are exposed to like in everything, right? There's school and work and all of these things where there's these systems that existed before we were born that we were born into, right?
Yeah.
And we just have accepted them as part of like this is how reality works. And it doesn't, I guess my point is that we're all influenced like to think that this is the way that things have to be, when in reality um it doesn't have to be that way.
Yep. Yep. We have to figure out where we want to go, what's important, take the steps. Nobody's going to bring it to you. You want to sit on the couch and wait for your life to change. It ain't going to change.
Yeah,
You have to get out that door and do
yeah,
something, even if it's just a little thing. You hear the story of people who who weigh 500 pounds, and a year later they're running a marathon, and they
Mm,
start off with walking from the living room to the kitchen, or jogging down the hallway in their house because that's as far as they can go, and
mm,
eventually they're running out to the mailbox to get the mail, and then they go to the end of the street, and they can build up to that. It's little steps, little changes that get you going the direction that you want to go, towards what's important to you, towards the future that you want to have. It's
mm,
not a big giant thing you got to do. It's small steps that get you going that direction. And you're going to change every step you make. You're going to be different than you were the day before. So your next step may be a little bit different than what you thought it was going to be, because you're a little bit different than you thought you were going to be.
mm. Interesting.
So
Yeah,
take
I
that first
think.
step. That's the big thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think too, like in speaking about like alignment and things like that, like I really believe that. So, like, like when you're talking about someone who's like 500 pounds or something like that, I think that when there is a part of your life that is not going the way that you want it to go, I think that it's because there's something else in your life that is out of alignment, that's kind of, and it's manifesting in that way. And I don't even necessarily, I mean, I think someone can look at it in kind of like a spiritual way, but I also just mean practically speaking. I think sometimes like we're just not aware. Okay, so this is what I was saying before, right? About being born into like these systems and like this is the way things are. And because of that, we almost feel like we need to fit ourselves into these like molds of the way things are supposed to be. When in reality, it's like we're all, I think there's a lot of things about us that are similar, right? And that's why we can connect. But I think there's also things about us that make us extremely unique. And because we're born into these systems and these people around us telling us this is what you're supposed to do, this is who you're supposed to be, this is what you're supposed to think, this is what's supposed to be important to you, that we tend to like abandon that. And because of that, we end up out of alignment, right? And to me, that's what alignment means, is that like our life, the things that we're doing, the thoughts that we're thinking are out of alignment. They're not in line. They don't connect with who we actually are as a person, like
Right.
what our own values are, what our own priorities are. And I think that when we are out of alignment, just like you can imagine, I don't know if anyone, I mean, I drove a manual stick car for a long time. It's like when
Still
you're
do.
not, what was that?
I still do.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like when if you're trying to shift and the gears are not in alignment, it's like right, things get messed up, and it's like I think that's what happens in life, is that when it's in a car you get immediate feedback, right? But in your
Right.
life, it might take years to get that kind of feedback where you're living out of alignment and there's parts of your life that are falling apart and you're not happy and you're not fulfilled. And I think because there is that like delay, right? It's not always instant, that like we don't connect it. But I really do believe that like if there's actual physical, practical things that are out that in your life are not the way you want it to be, and also you're also not feeling fulfilled, you're not, as happy as you think you could be, I really do believe that it's because there's something in your life that is out of alignment, and maybe many things.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. An important aspect of that is, for anybody that may be feeling that way, just because you feel that way doesn't mean you're stuck there. You know,
Mm,
the nobody is stuck
yeah.
in that. At least you don't have to be. And there's
Yeah.
there's ways to get help with that. If it's official physical thing that it's getting in the way, there's doctors that can help with it, specialists. If it's something emotional, there's therapists. If there are professionals that can help. Maybe it's just going to be a friend that you can talk to and vent to
Mhm.
and let stuff out, or a little shameless plug, a coach.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I was about to ask you that next.
the thing that we do as coaches, we look forward. We don't look backwards. So
Mm,
if there's a issue, in your upbringing or in events that happen that's holding you back, we don't get into that. There are specialists that do that, and they know how to do that. I don't, but I do know how to tell you how to get stuff that's in your way out of your way, so
mm,
you can see what your future is supposed to look like and start building that path. Because people in general, they know how to get where they're going, but it's so bogged down with so much information, so much junk, that they don't know how to get it out of their heads.
mm. So if someone listening is like, I need John's help, like how exactly do you help them then?
The Basically, it's a lot of talking and a lot of
Okay.
listening, and exercises to help move through stuff. And um, everybody's got a different place that they are, but it's just clearing stuff out and asking a lot of questions of, okay, why do you think that? Is there something that you know of that's in that way, or do you really think that? And digging into all of those things, to nailing down the beliefs, to the future, to what you want to do, the skills that you got to have. It's just pulling that stuff out and helping someone to see, okay, this is what I want to do, and this is what's in my way. This is how I move forward.
Interesting. So, if someone listening does want to get your help, how do they connect with you?
My website is nice and easy, thecoach.vip. And it's because everybody I work with is a VIP, a very important person. And so it's thecoach.vip. And there's links there for my book if you're interested in that. Or I send a blog out once a week, which is basically a good feeling life tip of some sort. No politics, no negativity. And the mailing list doesn't go anywhere other than sit in my computer and wait for next week's to go out. And it goes out every Thursday morning. Anybody that wants to sign up can do that. It's free. And those are the different ways to reach me. Or my phone number's on there too. I've got my direct line right on there.
Wow, look at that. All right, John. Well, this has been a great conversation, man. I really appreciate you coming on. And yeah, thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day, man.
Thanks, Giuliano. It was a good time. It was fun to listen to your philosophy. I learned a little bit there. And so thanks very much for that. And best wishes to anybody out there listening. Remember, you are important. You have value. You are unique. There is nobody that is just like you, never has been, never will be. So don't be afraid to share what you have. We need your opinions in this world today.
Love it, man. All right. Have a good one.
Thanks. You too.
Thanks for being here. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review or share it with someone who'd appreciate it. For everything I have to offer, visit howtobeaperson.co.